So, of course, we're going to take a look at terrible teams and say your season's over. So where are you at in the draft? Right now, the Eagles would pick 6th in next year's NFL draft. First top 10 selection they would make since picking Carson Wentz since 2016. The winless Jets in full position to pick 1st overall for the first time since 1996, while the Jaguars have control over the 2nd spot. And, of course, you can't mention the draft without name-checking Trevor Lawrence. I think we are contractually obligated. The Clemson quarterback expected to enter the draft to the salacious delight of Gang Green and, frankly, anyone even slightly disillusioned with their quarterback. No, Tampa Bay, you can't tank for Trevor. All right, joining us now, the NFL Draft's biggest questions right now on ESPN.com. We welcome in Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay to answer a few of them. Jets, Jaguars currently with those top 2 picks, as we showed. Todd, what are the chances that we're going to see quarterbacks go 1-2 in the draft?
I think it's highly likely, Elle. I really do. To me, Trevor Lawrence is like a generational talent. He has the highest grade of any quarterback I've given going back to 2012 with Andrew Luck. And just watching him, like he went 35 days without playing football, and I had covered this past game against Pittsburgh, and you would have thought that he had played every week. I mean, he is so in command, in control. We know about his physical tools, the big arm, the mobility. The big question to me, though, is the Jets sitting at 1. They've got a very good quarterback in Sam Darnold, I should say. And so do you keep Darnold and trade that pick if they are picking number 1 and get more first-rounders? They already have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years of the draft. So that's going to be the big question. Or do you try to move Sam and take Trevor with that number 1 overall pick? Regardless, I think Trevor's going to be that number 1 pick. And then Justin Fields from Ohio State. He had the 3 interceptions against Indiana. Not a great performance, obviously, but he's still completing around 80% of his throws. So I'm fairly confident you're going to see Lawrence 1, and then right after that, Justin Fields number 2.
Okay, Mel, let's live in Todd's world where it is Justin and then Trevor Lawrence, the first 2 picks in the draft. How many could we see go overall in the first round when it's all said and done?
I think it's going to be 5. And I think you look at that 3rd quarterback coming off the board, who would it be? Would it be Zach Wilson from BYU or Trey Lance, North Dakota State? Trey Lance had that 1 game, 15 to 30 throwing, but he ran for 143 yards. And certainly you look at Zach Wilson putting up big numbers at BYU with the schedule really being favorable. And then Mac Jones at Alabama, lighting it up. He's maybe get Jaylen Waddle back to go along with Devonta Smith. So he's in really good shape, I think, when you look at what Lance did in that 1 game. It's just a hiccup. He had a phenomenal year last year with the 28 touchdowns and no interceptions. Completed 67% of his passes. And Wilson with that quick release and that strong arm. He's back at that shoulder injury a couple of years ago, putting together the best year so far of his career at BYU. And then Mac Jones with all those weapons. Now minus Waddle, he hasn't missed a beat. Devonta Smith's been spectacular. Najee Harris running the football gives him great balance behind that tremendously talented offensive line. So all those quarterbacks, I think, those 5, I think, all figure in round 1.
As we know, quarterback needs their weapons, and much of the talk of this past draft was the Packers deciding, we don't need a receiver in the first round of this year's draft. No, we're going to take another quarterback in Jordan Love instead. So what do you think, Mel? Could this be the draft that we finally see Green Bay take a receiver with that first pick for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think it's going to set up that way. You think about the receiving depth in this draft with 5 or 6 in the first round, and then that battle of Jamar Chase from LSU, Devonta Smith, Alabama. Who's going to be the first receiver off the board? Smith's been a touchdown maker at Alabama, 26 touchdowns over the last 2 years. We knew what he did as a freshman. He's been spectacular for Nick Saban. And Chase had that great year and then opted out, but he was spectacular with Joe Burrow, averaging over 20 yards a catch with 20 touchdowns last season. So I think you saw Smith this year. We've seen him now doing great things. We didn't see Chase play, so that's going to be a battle there. And Jaylen Waddle was spectacular until he injured that ankle. Now he may come back late in the year. Mac Jones will love that. And then you have Rashod Bateman at Minnesota, certainly opting out after playing for the Golden Gophers in a few games this year. And some depth there as well at the wide receiver position with Terrace Marshall from LSU, who played at 10 catches against Texas A&M, then opts out. But when you watch Devonta Smith, though throughout his career, I think by the time we get to late April, I wouldn't be surprised that he's the first receiver off the board with Jamar Chase right there, kind of 1 and 1A, and certainly Miami for Tua could look at a receiver at some point with one of those 2 first-round picks for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins, I mean, you look at Tua Tagovailoa, and you got 2 receivers coming out of Alabama that he's played with. and he knows, and he has the timing with Devonta Smith, who has been the most consistent of these 4 receivers that are going to go in the first round in 2, back-to-back years, which is the first time in the history of the NFL draft that a school has had 4 wide receivers go in the first round in two consecutive years. So you got Devonta Smith, who would make a lot of sense. Jaylen Waddle, if Smith is off the board when Miami picks, he would be a great addition as well. Tua needs playmakers. He needs guys that can create after the catch. And when healthy, there is no one more explosive and dynamic in college football than Jaylen Waddle when he has the ball in his hands. So those would be 2 great options to bring in a guy that Tua has a comfort level with already. I think that would just elevate his game.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.